The call came just as I was locking my apartment door. My father's voice drifted through the line, light and strangely calm. "Dana, listen. It's better if you do not come for Christmas this year." I kept my hand on the knob, the metal cold against my palm. "What do you mean it will just be easier?" he said. "Kelsey is already stressed. You know how she gets." He spoke as though he were adjusting a dinner reservation, not cutting me out of the holiday. A breath stuck in my throat. "So you are uninviting me." There was a pause, the kind that makes everything obvious. "It is just one Christmas," he answered. "Let things settle." Something inside me tilted, not in shock, but in clarity. My father had always rearranged the world to keep my younger sister comfortable, but hearing it this plainly, it felt like a door quietly shutting. "All right," I said. I kept my voice steady, even though my knees felt unsteady beneath me. "If that is what you want." He exhaled, relieved. "Good. We will talk later." The call ended. The hallway went silent. I lowered my keys and stood still, realizing nothing about this moment surprised me. What surprised me was how calm I felt. Before I moved again, I whispered into the quiet, "If you are listening, tell me where you are tuning in from." Then I walked back into my apartment, knowing this Christmas would not break me. It would wake me. I hung my coat on the back of the chair and let the silence settle. My apartment above the corner store was small, but it was mine, warm enough when I could afford it, quiet enough after 10-hour shifts at the warehouse. Mom always said, "Dana can handle anything." Dad preferred, "She does not cause trouble." They said it like praise, but it felt more like a role I never agreed to play. I sat at the table, rubbing the ache from my wrists. My phone buzzed once a message from my coworker. "Haley, did you make it home? Roads are icing up already." I typed back, "Home. Just tired." I did not mention the call. I did not know how to say. My father uninvited me from Christmas because my sister might be moody. I set the phone down and stared at the steam rising from the mug I had forgotten to drink from. My parents lived barely an hour away in Apple River, but somehow the distance between us had stretched into something colder than the Wisconsin winter itself. When I finally moved from the table, the weight of my father's words followed me into the room like a shadow. Not because they hurt, but because they confirmed something I had been too tired to name. Kelsey had always been the center of gravity in our family. Even when we were kids, every mood of hers sent everyone scrambling. By the time we were adults, it had become a quiet rule: keep Kelsey comfortable, no matter what it cost anyone else. I remembered a conversation from last winter. Dad stood in the kitchen, shaking his head like he was helpless. "She had a rough week. Dana, do not push her." I had simply nodded. That was what I always did. And Mom. She tried to smooth everything over with gentle smiles and soft words. "She does not mean to be difficult," Mom would whisper. "You know she is sensitive." Sensitive. That was the word they used instead of selfish. I thought about the year Kelsey quit her job at the salon because her manager looked at her the wrong way. Mom brought her tea. Dad told her she deserved better. I offered to help her rewrite her resume. Kelsey rolled her eyes and said, "You are making this stressful. Dana, one Christmas." I took the late bus through an ice storm just to arrive on time with gifts in my arms. Kelsey floated past me without a hello, complaining that the bows on her presents were crooked. Dad laughed it off. Mom apologized for her. No one asked about the bus ride. Those memories rose like frost along a window pane, thin, cold, and impossible to scrape off. Kelsey cried, and the family bent. Kelsey panicked, and the family rearranged itself. And me, I stepped aside, smoothed things, carried weight that no one acknowledged. When my father uninvited me from Christmas, it did not feel random. It felt like the natural end of a pattern they had rehearsed for years. The folder sat on the bottom shelf of my desk drawer, thin but heavy in a way only certain truths can be. I pulled it out and set it on the table. Every slip inside it belonged to a winter my parents could not afford, and I quietly covered 5 winters, 5 years of late-night calls and whispered panic. I heard Dad's voice as I opened the first receipt. "The furnace is acting strange again. Dana." Your mother can see her breath. No greeting. No asking how I was doing after a 10-hour shift. The next page carried Mom's soft apology. "We will pay you back when things settle. Thank you for helping, sweetheart. Things never settled, and they never paid. Oil deliveries, repair visits, emergency tune-ups. Line after line, date after date. I added the numbers months ago, but I whispered them again now, just to feel the weight of it. $6,400. Money pulled from my rent weeks, my grocery weeks, my survival weeks. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom, sent earlier in the day when I had ignored in the haze after the call from Dad. "Kelsey is overwhelmed this year. Please understand her. It is better if we keep things calm." I stared at the screen. So that was the real reason. Not space, not peace. Just keeping Kelsey comfortable. I slid the folder closed. The truth was no longer hiding in paper. It was sitting in my chest, steady and undeniable. I opened my laptop and signed into the Whitfield Fuel Company account. The dashboard loaded slowly, as if even the website knew what I was about to do. At the top of the screen sat the next scheduled payment, $178 due in early January. I stared at the number until my chest tightened. For years, that payment had been automatic, no hesitation, no conversation, no gratitude. Just me filling the gap so my parents would not freeze in that old farmhouse. I clicked the Manage Payments tab, and a confirmation window appeared. My phone buzzed. A message from Dad. "We need to talk. Do not make this a big deal." I set the phone down without opening it. Mom had texted earlier too. A softer plea. "Your sister is fragile this season. We just want a peaceful holiday." Not a word about me. My cursor hovered over Cancel Auto Pay. For a moment, guilt flared sharp, familiar. The same guilt that kept me quiet through every winter emergency and every moment Kelsey cried louder than anyone else's needs. Then something steadier rose to meet it. I whispered, "No more," and clicked. A final box flashed on the screen. Confirm cancellation. My finger pressed the key. The page refreshed. The schedule disappeared. The heat in that farmhouse no longer depended on me. The cold front hit 2 days later. I felt it in my own apartment first, the windows rattling, the air tightening, but mine stayed warm enough. I paid for that warmth. I earned it. Before noon. My phone buzzed. "Mom, the thermostat is stuck at 52. Do you think it is the battery?" I read the message twice, then set the phone face down. An hour later, another text. "Your father says the furnace is not kicking on. Maybe it is a glitch." A glitch. For 5 winters. Every glitch had ended up on my card. By late afternoon, Dad called. The first time I let it ring. The second time too. By the third, he left a message, his voice sharp. "Dana, answer the phone. Do not be childish about this." Childish? I almost laughed. Around dinner time, Kelsey posted on social media a picture of her legs wrapped in blankets, 2 pairs of fuzzy socks on her feet, a mug of cocoa in her hand. Our house feels like a freezer. Old homes are a nightmare. Dozens of comments poured in. Not one mentioned me. Not one hinted they knew exactly why the house was cold. Mom tried again. "Your sister is anxious. Please help us keep things calm." Not, "We miss you." Not, "We want you here." Just fix this for Kelsey. The weather report warned of a storm rolling in before Christmas. Heavy wind, sharp temperature drops, the kind of cold that slices through walls. I stood by my window listening to the distant howl. For the first time in years, I did not reach for my coat or my keys. The storm outside was theirs to face. The knock came just after sunrise, loud enough to shake the frame. I pulled my sweater tighter and stepped to the door, checking the peephole. My father stood in the hallway, shoulders hunched inside a thin coat, his breath fogging the air. He looked older than he had 2 weeks ago. "Dana," he said when I opened the door halfway, "we need to talk." I kept the chain on. About what his jaw tightened. "The house is freezing. Your mother has not slept in 2 nights. Kelsey is upstairs crying. This is getting out of hand." I held his stare. "You told me not to come for Christmas." "That was different," he snapped. "This is serious." "It was serious then." He blinked, thrown for a second. "You canceled the payments. Why would you do that?" "I did not cancel your heat," I said calmly. "I canceled my part in paying for it." He rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture I had seen my entire life. "You have always handled this. You know we count on you. That is the problem." I answered, "You count on me for everything except being part of the family." His face flushed. "It is just one holiday." "Dana." Kelsey was overwhelmed. "We were trying to avoid drama, and you thought removing me was easier than telling her no." He let out a brittle breath. "We do not have the money. I had to pawn your grandfather's watch set. That bought 1 drum of oil. It will not last the week." The words hit me, soft but heavy. Grandpa's watches. Even that had not been enough. "Your mother is sick," he added quietly, desperation seeping into his voice. "She cannot stay in a cold house. Do not punish us." "I am not," I said. "I am finally stopping the punishment I put on myself." His mouth opened, then closed again. I eased the door toward its frame. "Take care of Mom." "Dana." The latch clicked, sealing the space between us, and the hallway fell silent again. The storm rolled in 3 days after Christmas, pushing snow against my windows in thick, angry waves. By early evening, another knock sounded softer this time. I almost didn't hear it. When I opened the door, my mother stood there, hair dusted with snow, scarf pulled tight, gloves damp from the walk. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, voice trembling. "I am sorry to show up like this." I stepped back just enough for the warm air to reach her face, but I didn't remove the chain. "How did you get here?" I took the shuttle into town. It stopped running once the storm picked up. "So," she rubbed her hands together. "I walked the last few blocks." Her breath shook. I waited. "I need to talk to you," she said. "Not about money, not about the heat, about us." My chest tightened. She swallowed. "I let your father make decisions that hurt you. I let Kelsey dictate every holiday. I kept choosing what was easiest instead of what was right, and you carried all of it." Her eyes lifted to mine, finally steady. "You should not have had to." Wind rattled the hallway light. Still, she didn't look away. "I should have stood up for you years ago," she whispered. "I am ashamed that I didn't. I am not asking you to fix anything. I just want a chance to do better. If you ever let me—" The words landed with a weight I wasn't expecting soft, but real. "I am not angry anymore," I said quietly, "but I cannot go back to what I was." She nodded, tears gathering. "I understand." She stepped back into the storm, small against the wind. I closed the door gently, the warmth behind it finally my own. The days after the storm felt strangely quiet. I heard through Haley that my father had rented a weekly rate motel outside Apple River, heat included. Nothing else. Kelsey bounced between friends' couches, each stay shorter than the one before. Mom sent one message a few days later. "I started counseling at the community center. I am trying. Thank you for being honest with me." I read it twice, letting the words settle instead of rushing to respond. My own apartment stayed warm. I lit a cheap candle I bought on sale, watched the soft glow move across the walls. and realized this was the first Christmas season in years I was not bracing for someone else's crisis. When I stepped outside to take out the trash, the snow had softened into a quiet blanket over the street. I felt something in my chest loosen peaceful, steady. Mine. Back inside, I made tea and sat by the window, the heater humming low. For once, the warmth in the room was something I paid for without resentment, something I chose without guilt. If you are listening and you have ever carried more than your share, tell me where you are tuning in from. Maybe this time, we can warm our own rooms first.